Hey there, Squirrel Army. How's it going for today? Today, we're doing another D&D Commander Legends 2 Commander deck, and I think this might be the last one that I actually do, maybe, but hey, if you guys want to see me do more, hey, definitely tell me, I'll definitely do more. But this one's Lae'zel and Master Chef. But just before we get any further into the video, if you're enjoying the content here, you can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing and turning on the notifications. It keeps the squirrels from eating your nuts. But with that, let's get back into the content. Alright, so we're doing Lae'zel and Master Chef. Not Master Chef UK, not Master... I think I told that joke in How Good is Master Chef? But anyway, we'll move on because there's more to get to. This is a +1/+1 counters deck, and this is a deck that I've built for myself, and I think it's absolutely amazing and cool and fun, and there's lots to do with this deck. So first off, you've got to get Master Chef out, because Master Chef is actually more important than Lae'zel a lot of the time. Lae'zel just sort of enables Master Chef to kind of work in a sense, but you really need Master Chef out before Lae'zel comes out. You don't really care that Lae'zel is a 5/5 or whatever. That's fine. It's a nice blocker or whatever. It doesn't have any abilities whatnot when it has counters, but there are other things that are going to give it abilities as we go along and whatnot. But anyway, that's fine. It's a nice blocker and a nice attacker to a degree. Sometimes you'll get in some of those, beats, but then again, it's a, turn 4 card a lot of the time because you're playing Master Chef on turn 3 a lot of the time. So, hey, you don't get it out there that early, and, people have time to sort of establish a board presence by then, and by that time you've got, Master Chef and Lae'zel, and that's pretty much it. After that, you've got to go from there and start building up your board, putting out +1 counter stuff, and doing some interesting things. So that's what we're going to get to today, some +1/+1 counters shenanigans. So it looks like we'll skip through most of these new cards here. There are some interesting ones. Damning Verdict, certainly interesting. Be a really good board wipe for us and whatnot. Sanctuary Warden's actually pretty good as well. But hey, we're doing more other things with counters and whatnot to a degree. I don't know. It's kind of cool, but I think we could find other things. So I think we'll skim over most of that stuff for the most part. Abzan Falconer is a 1000% card. Kadama of the West Tree, 1000% card. Evolution Sage, hey, that's a 1000% card. Champion of Lambhold, that's a 1000% card. We're definitely going to have that. Gaia Sage, not too sure, maybe. Probably not, though. No, probably not. But then again, it can get counters right away, so, but I don't know. Of course, we're going to be rounding such staples as Swords to Plowshares and Beasts Within, etc. I'm not going to go through too much of that, like Rampant Growth sort of style stuff. Those are obvious to a degree. Like, we're in green and white. We need removal and we need ramp, so we're going to have a lot of that sort of stuff. We're going to have Nature's Law and 3 visits and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to go through that too much. I'm going to go through the actual cards that are actually going to be in this deck, but we're definitely going to have a fellow to retreat. I think Hams is actually pretty darn cool because he can be just a 2-drop and then can make all of our spells incredibly cheap to cast. It's a silly deck that actually sort of combos off as well with certain things and whatnot in its own deck. But hey, that's not what we're doing here. We just want to get out, cheaper, cool things. Renata's also a pretty nice card to put into this deck. Not too sure about many of those top ones there. Shalai would be pretty nice. Hexproof is nice. Putting counters on everything's kind of nice as well. I actually thought Lenore for a little while would be alright, but I think it's a little bit too slow. That's just me and what I've sort of found because it's only one card per turn type thing. It does buff our stuff, and it can buff our stuff by by 2 counters essentially with our commander's ability. Lae'zel's ability rather. Sorry, too many L names. But anyway, yeah, I just don't know. It's just a little bit too little to actually do enough, and the fact that it only is like Phyrexian Arena kind of just never really satisfied me. Loyal Guardian, though, super duper good and whatnot, so definitely I'll put that in there. Vorinclex is just incredibly silly in this deck. I was thinking about putting Pier in here as well, but at a certain point, we don't want too many enhancers. We actually want enablers and whatnot, even though that Master Chef is in our command zone and is an amazing enabler. We do not need too many enhancers. We want value as well. We need these other things to be going well. Basri's Lieutenant, and there's another one that's basically the same as Basri's Lieutenant, but it makes flyers. Both of those I was like 1,000% on. I was thinking that was really cool. Here's one thing with Herd Baloth that I figured out while building this deck. Herd Baloth enters the battlefield. It gets a +1/+1 counter from the Master Chef ability, essentially. It also gets a additional counter from our commander's ability, which is technically also Master Chef's ability, but hey, semantics. It only gets the trigger once, essentially. So that's one thing I did find out about this deck as I was going through it and looking up some of the rules and asking some questions. This also happens with Scurry Oak, which is also in the deck. But both of these cards are really great either way because we're still putting lots and lots of counters on things. Juniper Auto Ranger is pretty decent as well. Oran Reef Ooze. I'm not going to go through every card, but hey, we're going to go through some of them. Avenger of Zendikar, it's just going to make a shit ton of plants for us, and those plants are already going to come with 2+1/+1 counters. Yes. And also Avenger of Zendikar is going to come in with 2+1/+1 counters. Yes. Very well. You know, like, these are things that we like. This is what we want to see. Victory's Envoy, 1,000% in here. Get it in here yesterday. Adeline, what's that? We're going to make 3/3 attackers now. That's pretty darn good. Iridescent Hornbeetle. Oh, we're just going to make 3/3s equal to the number of +1/+1 counters we've put onto things. Yeah, sure. That's fine too. So you can just see that this deck gets really, really silly really, really quickly with things like that. Suddenly we've got 3 extra power in an attack. And it's like, yes. As I said, Scurry Oak, Vigor, actually really good as well, because it protects our stuff and whatnot, and puts counters on our stuff when our stuff takes damage, and that's really, really useful, and if it ever does go to the graveyard, which is pretty rare, to be honest, but it does happen sometimes, it shuffles back in, so that's really useful. We'll get it again later on. So it's still, helps us out. I was thinking Elite Scale Guard for a little while, but I just found that it's a bit slow. Colonian Hydra. Oh, yes. Yes. What's that? It's already a 6/6 trample. What's that? It's already it becomes a 12/12 because it doubles its own counters, then becomes a 13/13, right? I think. Yeah, that's pretty good. Plus, it puts a whole bunch of +1/+1 counters on everything. As I said, that is silly. So I'm not going to go through too many of the artifacts and enchantments and instant sorceries because, well, there's not enough to really go through. But hey, I'm going to show you the full deck list now. I just wanted to talk about some of the really cool cards here quickly. So let's get over there and have a quick look at that. Alright, so we're here having a look at the list that I put together. And, this isn't the optimal list, I don't think, and this isn't probably the finished list, but this is pretty close to, I think what I had when I was making this deck and whatnot, and going through it and going through some of the cards and some of the effects, yeah, I kind of lost some of the cards and kind of was lost to try to find them again. I could redo it, but hey, we're just gonna go with it and do it as it is. So hey, that's half the fun anyway. We've got Sakura Tribe, Catilda, because Catilda does two things: makes mana. It makes mana on its own, and there are some humans in this deck. We don't really care about tapping them that much. It's okay if we do sometimes, but hey, we're just there for the Catilda to make mana, and then sometimes it'll make all of our stuff buffed by +2/+2, which is, pretty darn good for the most part. Even by +1/+1 is okay if we don't have a commander still on board and whatnot. As I said, some other stuff that I didn't really go through, like Order of Autumn, just really great card. Now, as I sort of said, I'm taking some of the cards out here and whatnot. I'm taking Eternal Witness out. Some people will groan at that, I know. And I said some of the cards that are not technically in the deck, I've just tossed them in because, hey, I wanted it to look like it was nearly complete. So Pier and Elite Scale Guard aren't actually in this list at all properly, but hey, they're here for now. Torrens wasn't in the list either, actually, to be honest, either. So yeah, that, and there's a few others like Lenore and things like that. But anyway, we had to do some stuff to get here so that I could make it look like it was almost there at least. Marja isn't in the listing here either, or it shouldn't be anyway. But there you go, it's there. There's a lot of cards that are in here like Orin Frostfang and Soul of the Harvest and Gorex Pack Leader and Beast Whisperer and things like that don't really fit with exactly what the deck's doing. But hey, we need card draw, we need ramp, we need removal and that sort of stuff. So that's kind of what they're here for the most part. Hardened Scale's not actually in the list either, but Ranger class is. Actually, I will say Branching Evolution's not in this list that I've actually got myself, but hey, for this list, for you guys, it's here for now. But anyway, Ranger class. Ranger class is actually quite good. Like, the first thing isn't that amazing, just getting a 2/2 wolf for 2 mana. That's okay. Not amazing. Whenever we attack, we put a +1/+1 counter on an attacking creature, which is 2 +1/+1 counters. So that's pretty good. Not amazing, but still pretty darn good. And then the last mode to look at the top card and be able to cast creatures. Hey, most of our deck's creatures. Yes, we do have a few enchantments as well, and some instances of sorceries and some lands, obviously. But hey, being able to cast the top cards of our library, if it's a creature, which again, most of our deck is, or at least a third of our deck is quite useful. Dugan Defends the Temple. Actually, very underrated card, I think. Does a lot of work. It doesn't do a whole lot early, but it makes a mana dork, puts a +1/+1 counter on 2 creatures, so it puts 2 +1/+1 counters on 2 creatures. So that's pretty good. Then when it flips over, it's a flying creature that basically can pay 1 to put a +1/+1 counter on anything. And once you have so many creatures, I think it's 5 creatures with +1/+1 counters on it, it gets +5/+5. And it's a flyer, so it's pretty darn good. Rabble Rousing, I don't know whether that's actually in the list actually or not. I can't really remember, but it's all right. Cathar's Crusade, obviously insane. Combos with Scurry Oak and with what is it? Herd Baloth, and whatnot. So that's really good. Sagada's summons. Our stuff with +1/+1 counters are now base 4/4 flyers. Okay, so that's really powerful. I'm not going to go through too much of the lands for the most part, because hey, they're just kind of mostly basics. Yes, sure, I've got Beseiju and Bountiful Promenade and Brushland and all the good duels that I could kind of afford. But you guys have to make this with what you guys have or what you guys can afford. For the most part, don't get the Phyrexian Vorinclex because it's pretty expensive. Actually, I think I saw the regular Phyrexian Vorinclex has actually crept down underneath the price of the other ones, but I don't know whether that's actually true or not. But anyway, as I said, don't have to go out of your way to get Prismatic Vista and some of these other cards because, hey, that's just the way I kind of built the deck. I think I also put Field of the Dead in here for a little while, but then took it out. That's kind of why I had Snowlands. But the other reason I have Snowlands in most decks is now I want every basic to be different from every other basic. And this is hurting my eyes actually looking at all these same basics as well. Because there's 99 singleton format, and that's how I feel about, putting my basics in there. I really want to have, a whole bunch of different basics. But hey, as I said, this isn't my completed list. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the completed list. I'll have to update it and whatnot for myself. But hey, I'll do that eventually. But for you guys, this is a pretty decent deck. It's a pretty expensive as well. $300 something for a pretty decent deck. But again, that's a really good deck as well. So, and a lot of these are again cards that, there's a few 50-cent cards here and there, like Oran Refus and whatnot, and things like that. And some other cards, again, that I said not meant to be in here, but are in here just for now, just to sort of prop it up and make it look good and whatnot. But certainly some more expensive cards like Vorinclex and things like that. So those cards certainly buff up the price of this list. So, and even like 3 visits and things like that, there's a lot of cards in here that you go, oh yeah, that's only a couple bucks or whatever. But over a time, like those couple buck cards, really add up. But anyway, we all know that that's how it kind of works. But anyway, I hope you guys think this is pretty cool. I mean, it's a pretty simple, straightforward deck for the most part. You buff up your stuff, you attack your opponents, and you try to kill your opponents with your, +1/+1 countered buffed stuff and whatnot, and that sort of thing. So that's kind of like the very simplistic aggro, I do damage to you deck that I like. I know that's not for everyone, but this is just a sort of more basic, deck to sort of like, okay, I'm going to do my thing and get some value and do some stuff, and we're going to see how it goes. Not Wombo Combo Town, whatnot, and all of that. But hey, that is me. This is the way that I like to play. Just creatures, turn them sideways, and let's see, who comes out on top and whatnot. That's the fun of it, I think. And sometimes, like, again, this deck can be very strong, not just in terms of, combos or whatever else. It can be very difficult to kind of deal with. Once you deal with it, it's kind of like, oh yeah, but maybe I can recover a bit. But hey, it's a little bit, I hope it goes well after that. But that's the same with any creature deck like this. But anyway, guys, as I say, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hope you found it interesting, and another deep, little bit of a dive into the sort of decks that I like to build. Hope you like the same sort of thing, and if you do, you can let me know your thoughts down there in the comments below, or if you don't, you can also let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. You can tell me that you love Wombo Combo Towns, and when am I going to do a CDH list, and all this sort of stuff. Write those thoughts down there in those comments. I'll be sure to tell you why I'm never going to do that in those comments below, or why I'm going to do that in those comments below. But otherwise, if I don't see you down there in those comments, I'll see you in the next one.